Hi guys, welcome to today's video. In today's video, we are going to be learning how to get started with Webflow. This video is for people who are just getting started with Webflow and who are looking to move from a beginner level to people who are ready to start building web applications with Webflow. The whole essence of this video is to give you the required knowledge to start building web applications with Webflow. I'm going to try as much as possible to keep this video as short as possible, and to practicalize what we are going to be learning, we are going to be building this web page that you see here. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, so here I am in my Webflow environment, basically my Webflow dashboard, and we're going to go ahead to create a new site. But before I do that, I want to show you guys the web page we're going to be replicating, which is this design here by Victor. And I've also created a replica of this in my Figma file. So here we have the Figma version so that we can go ahead to focus on the most basic and the most important parts of this particular process. So I'm going to go back to the Webflow dashboard and I'm going to click on create new site. But you won't be able to create more than 2 instances of a new project on your Webflow if you're using the free version, just like I am. So you might want to upgrade to a better version so that you can have multiple sites that you can create. So basically I'm going to leave the site name to be whatever is generated by Webflow, which is this particular cool name here. I'm just going to click on create site, and that is just going to open up our work environment, basically the canvas where you can start creating your designs. And as you can see here, it's just a plain canvas, and what we have here is a little toolbar on the left. We have this at the top here and this on the right. So what you just need to know about this particular toolbar is this plus item lets us add containers or add elements to our page, such as the div block and typography and images. And here is our pages. If you have more than one page, you can find them all in this particular section. And here is just where we have our navigator, or you can also call it layers. If you're coming from a Figma background, this is where you're going to find your layers. So as you can see here, by default, you have your body, because all websites has a body element. And basically how the Webflow layout works, it uses the box model of the web, which is simply laying out objects in a box model, right? So at the top here, we have our breakpoints, we have tablet, you have mobile, but we are just going to be focusing on the desktop version. So we are going to be focusing on this desktop breakpoint. And on the right here, we have our styles. This is once you have an element, you can customize the spacing, typography, and background of that particular element. And that's where, and this particular section is where you can make those changes. So let's go ahead to start working on this particular environment. So if you click on the body here and come down to the background section, you can see that the background is white. I'm just going to change the background to our specific background. So I'm going to go to our designs on Figma and I'm going to pick this particular hex code for the background. I'm going to paste it here, and here you can see that the body background have changed. So to start creating our layout, you really need to understand the structure. So the way the structure of this works, basically on the web, if you want to structure your elements, if you click on this plus, you see we have sections. The first thing you want to actually add to your web page is your section. Your section can be, let's say, your navigation section, your hero section, and some other sections you have on your web page. Then next, you want to have your container. Your container is just to align the contents in your section within a particular margin, right? So your container just keeps your content aligned properly. So here I'm going to throw in a section, and this section is going to be our navigation section. But you cannot go ahead and rename this layer section just like the way you will do in Figma. What you want to do is to give this section what we call classes or tags. So on the right here, you want to give it a class of, let's say, navbar, for instance. So we are going to have a class of navbar for this particular section. So these class names are reusable, and if you have multiple sections, so let's say for instance we give this particular navbar a border of white, so we give it a border of white, for instance, and it's going to be let's say 4 pixels. so we can see it. So we can go ahead to give it a height so that we can see this border. So we are going to give it a height of 100 pixels, and just like that you can see the borders around it. So let's say we copy this particular navbar and paste it again in our body text. If you go ahead to change the text or the color of this particular border, you're going to notice that both of these navbar changes, and this is because both of them share the same class name. But if you click on the second navbar and change the class name to, let's say, nav blue, for instance, if you go ahead to change the border color of this nav blue to, let's say, a blue border color, it's only going to change in this because it has a unique class name other than the next one. So that is basically how the CSS styling works. So we don't want to give this a border. All we just want to have is a basic navbar section here. I'm going to rename it back to navbar. And for this navbar, we want to start throwing in our elements. So the first thing is going to be this text element, and that says cowboy. So I'm going to copy this text element and I'm going to click on this plus item, and here we want to bring in a text block. So I'm going to shove in a text block into this navbar. I'm going to select the items here, the contents of this text, and I'm going to paste in what we just copied from Figma. I'm going to change the color of this text. I'm going to change the color of this text in the typography section here to white. And as you can see here, it's really small, smaller than what we had. So I'm going to increase the size to, let's say, 38 pixels. So we can see that we need some spacing around this particular text. So I'm going to click on this navbar section and I'm going to add padding around the navbar section. For padding, I'm going to use a padding right and left of 60 pixels. And for the top and bottom, this is the spacing section. For the top and bottom, I'm going to use a top of 20 pixels and a bottom of 20 pixels. So you can go ahead to add margin, but I want to use the padding for this particular spacing options. So we have a cowboy brand identity. In your case, if you have an image, you're going to go ahead and put an image in this brand identity section, and I'm going to show you guys how to bring in an image in a few minutes. So the next thing we want to do is to have our links, the about. So I'm just going to copy this about text so we can go ahead to start adding our link items. So still selecting this navbar section, I'm going to click on the plus and I'm going to scroll down to bring in a text link. So you can see that this navbar is displayed block, that is, the contents are stacked on each other. What you want to do is to change the display of this particular navbar, and you can come down to this display section and change it from block down to flex. So I'm going to click on flex and you can see they are all on the same row. So now you're going to change the styling of this particular text link because this is not how we want the styling to be. So I'm going to go to the typography section of this and I'm going to change the color to white. And for the decoration, you can see here that it's underlined because it's a link. I'm going to click on this X to remove the decoration from it. But we are going to be having more than one text link, so I'm just going to rename this or change the text to the about. So we are going to be having more than one text link, just the way we see here. We have the news and features. So what we are going to do is to create a separate div that contains these three text link. So I'm going to go to this plus item and I'm going to bring in a div block. I'm going to add a div block here. So for this div block, I want to put the link items inside this div block so that it has its own container. So I'm going to select this link and move it into the div block section. Now we have two sections in our navbar, which is this text block and the div block. So the div block, we are going to have three links. So I'm going to copy this, or I'm going to hit Command D on my keyboard or Control D if you're using a PC to duplicate this link section. Now we have three links here. So just like we know that this particular three link item are sharing the same CSS, so a single style added to one of these link item will be added to all three. So what I'm going to do is to add some spacing to this link item. I'm going to add a spacing of 10 pixels on the right and 10 pixels on the left. As you can see, it's all added to all of these link items, which is typically what we want. So I'm going to go to our designs, select this particular text and replace it with what we have here. I'm also going to select this features text and replace it with what we have here. So our navigation bar is looking nice. The next thing we want to add is this button text here. And as you have guessed, if we click on this plus item, we can select a button element from here. We're just going to click and drag it down to our nav bar section. So we want to make our button look like what we have in our Figma. So first, I'm going to rename the text. I'm going to select this text and I'm going to rename the text to order now. Now we want to edit the styles. So clicking on this button and coming to this style section, we can give this particular button a style. So we can call it navbar CTA, right? So we've given this button its own class name. Let's go ahead to change the style of this button. So I'm going to scroll down to this border section and I'm going to drag this controller all the way to the right to make the border radius like a pill. So I also want to change the color of this section. So I'm going to go to the background. You can see the background is blue. I'm going to reduce the opacity down to 0. And I'm also going to go to the border section and add a width of 1 pixel. And I'm going to select a white color. So once we have this, we have a custom view for our button. I'm also going to add a little padding, a little more padding on the right and on the left. I think 20 pixels is good to make our button look more like what we have here. So the next thing we want to do is to spread out these items evenly, just like the way we have here in our designs. And to do that, what we want to do is to change this particular justify option. And the option we want to set it to is space between. So I'm just going to click on space between. And as you can see, it's all spaced out evenly. I'm also going to align it center so that all the items are aligned center. And I think this is looking good. This is looking like what we have in our designs. So the next thing we want to do is to set up this next section, which is this block here. So I'm going to copy this text. And to do that, just like you've guessed, the first thing we are going to do is to throw in another div block. So this div block is just going to come under this navigation section. And for the div block, we want to start adding our text. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add a text block. For this text block, I'm going to select the text and I'm going to change the text to what we have, what I just copied from there. I'm going to select it, also change the color of the text to white. And I'm going to change the size of the text to, let's say, 60 pixels. I'm just going to drop this onto the next line. And here you see we need to add some more line height to this. So for the line height, I'm also going to say 40 pixels. That's a little too small. I'm going to say 60. And I think 60 pixels is good. But for this div block, we need to maintain our margin on the left and on the right. So for this particular div block, I'm going to select the div block and I'm going to go to the spacing section and give it the same left and right padding that we gave the navigation section. So this is good. I'm also going to give it a top and bottom padding of 60 at the top and bottom 20 at the bottom. So 60 at the top and 20 pixels at the bottom. So I think this is fair. The next thing we want to add is this particular text here on the far right. And to do this, just like the way we've added other texts, I'm going to click on this plus button and drag in the text to this section. I'm going to select the text and I'm going to paste in the exact text that we copied. And I'm going to change the color in this typography section to white. But I want it to look a little like this. So I want it to have a lighter shade of white. And for the font weight, I want it to be a little bit lighter. So I'm going to select this. And I noticed for the font weight, we can't go lighter than this. So I'm going to try and change this particular font to this system UI. And I'm going to give it an extra light weight and also reduce the shade of the white. But this text needs to be at the far right. So I'm going to select this div block and I'm going to change the display from this block display down to flex, just like the way we did for our navbar section. And I'm also going to structure this text the way we have it exactly in the design. Drop this to 2 lines, and I'm going to change this justify option to space between, so that this spreads out the items evenly. Now I'm also going to align it to the bottom so that the text are aligned to the bottom. So guys, as you can see, this is coming out and it's looking like what we have in our Figma design. So let's go ahead to keep making updates to this. So the next thing we want to do is to add our button, this pre-order button, and we can easily copy this button from here and bring it into this div section, but I want it to fall on a separate row. So I'm going to add another div block to this, and for this div block I'm just going to paste in this other button that we copied. And for also this div block, we want to maintain our left and right padding, so padding on the left of 60 and padding on the right of 60. Once we have this, we want to start making changes to this order now button. So to start making changes to this button, if we select this button and we go to this background section and fill it up with white, you're going to notice that also this button changes. And this is the concept I told you guys about earlier, that if you have the same CSS selector for elements, changes on one affects all of those elements. So in order to avoid this, you're going to select this CTA button, and I'm just going to change or add an additional CSS to this, and I'm just going to call it order btn. So with this, if I go ahead to start making changes to the color or the fill, you're going to notice that it doesn't affect the existing button we have. So first I'm going to change this order now text to, I'm going to change it to the color of this background. So I'm going to select this order noun text, and in this typography section I'm going to select this and I'm going to paste it here. So for the fill, I'm going to select this and come to the background section and give it a fill of white. So now this button is looking like what we have in our designs. All that's left is to copy this text and paste it here, and we have something very similar to this. So guys, our web page is coming out really nice. The next thing we are going to do is to just fix this image section here. So there is 2 ways to achieving this particular image section. What we can do is to add our text and then have a background image for the text, or we can use CSS positioning to make this or to achieve this. So I'm going to go with the second option to use the CSS positioning. But first, we are going to create a div block for our image section. So I'm going to bring in a div block here. And for this div block, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to bring in an image. So I'm going to select choose image, and as you've guessed, there is no image in our file currently. So I'm going to click on this button that says upload, and I'm going to select one of these bikes to upload. So I'm going to upload this particular bike image, and as you can see here, it's uploading. Once it's done uploading, you're going to see the full image here on your screen. But if you have a lower resolution image, it might not be as big as this. So basically, what we want to do from here is to select this div block that contains the image and give it some spacing around. And in my case, I'm going to maintain the same 60 pixel that I've been using on the left and on the right. And I'm also going to apply it to the top and the bottom of this image section. Now we have something cool. We want to go ahead to apply our text. So I'm also going to click on this plus item and drag in a text block. For this text block, we just want to copy this text and paste it in this text block. I'm going to select it, change the fill in this typographic section to white, and I'm also going to increase the size of this to, let's say, 48 pixel. I think that's a little too small, 248 pixel. And I think this is good. But now we need to stack this particular text in the middle of this bike. So if I click here I think this is a pretty decent layout aside from the fact that it's overlapping on this image. But what we are trying to achieve is this right here. So I'm going to select this div block that has both the text and the image. And I'm going to come to this positioning section and change the positioning from static to relative. And then I'm going to select this text block, and I'm also going to change the positioning from static down to absolute. Once you've done this, you're going to have the option to position your text element absolutely in different ways. So you can position it to the bottom right, bottom left, and you can position it any way you want, but this is typically not what we want. We want to customly position it the way we want, which is typically to the middle. So I'm going to select this div block. After you've selected absolutes for the text, please do not check any of this. You can leave them the way it is. And then you're going to click on this div block that contains both the text and the image. And what you want to do is to come to this display section and click on display flex. Now you're going to have the option to align your text properly. So from this, I'm going to align to the center, and I'm also going to justify it to the center. So this is going to give us a centered aligned text relative to our image. So the essence of this tutorial video is to just show you guys how you can start working with the layouts in Webflow and start laying out objects in your screen. So guys, this is it. I believe this looks exactly like what we have on our Figma board, and this is just to show you guys the bare basics of the building blocks of Webflow and how you can start positioning your elements, your divs around on the screen easily while understanding some basic layout options like the flex, like the block, like how to position relative and absolutes, and how you can achieve basic layout structures in Webflow. So thank you guys for watching. Please do well to like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so that I get notified whenever I post a new video. I'm going to see you guys in my next video. Bye for now.